Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of ZFK Talks. For my total sum of probably 3 viewers, you guys know that I just spent about 3 months in the Bahia De Banderas region of Mexico, also known as Puerto Vallarta, and other associated cities on the bay. It was beautiful. However, with a trip of that kind of length and duration, there was definitely its ups and downs. However, I think the world of that area. I thought it was great. I think that if you wanted to go to Mexico, this is a safe region to visit, and there is plenty to do there, plenty of sun, and plenty of good people to meet from around the world and from Mexico. All around, it was great. So, I kind of wanted to make another content piece in the original script for that video. If you haven't checked it out already, it is ZFK Vlogs, Tres Meses in Puerto Vallarta, episode 2. You can go check it out. It's a little bit more visual. This is going to be for those that are thinking about making a trip to Puerto Vallarta, and it's going to be just basic general tips and tricks, things that I wish I had known before I went there. So again, this is a cut down from that video that was originally supposed to be included, but the runtime on it was getting long and it just didn't really fit the vision for what it ended up becoming. So that is why this is coming through on a separate video. So first and foremost, we will start right from where your trip would begin. Landing in PVR airport. First thing, you probably want to fill out any visa information they give you on the plane ahead of time, because the lineups may or may not be long. Another tip, once you get through, this might be a normal thing for you if you've been to a lot of foreign locations, or if this is your first time kind of leaving Canada or the States for a location like this, you might not be used to it. But once you get through customs and you're walking into the main exit of the airport, you will have a whole slew of people hounding you and trying to sell you stuff. Just promptly walk by these people and make your way. Don't bother with them. Once you get out to the exit and that hot Puerto Vallarta air hits you in the face, I would definitely recommend that if you are a normal person that likes to save money, maybe a person of the future, we might even call you, to go use Uber. It's going to be way cheaper than getting a airport cab. And when I tried to do this myself, I was by myself, so it was like super confusing because I could not get an Uber to show up. So me with my terrible Spanglish, I went and asked some taxi drivers where the Ubers are supposed to pick you up. And with that said, they basically showed me that when you exit the airport and make a left, don't make a right, because that's where the Corona bar is, and you'll spend a ton of money there and probably get hammered before you even get to your hotel or Airbnb. You make a left around the building, the face of the airport, make another left, and you will see stairs. There's a bridge that goes over a highway back down to a little restaurant facade type of area. That is where you get your Uber. It shows up there reliably. I picked up my buddy at the airport when I was there, and I also got myself an Uber when I was there, and it all worked out pretty seamlessly. Hilariously enough, I actually got over this bridge with my bags and ended up having some Mexican children ask me, like, right off the bat, hey, are you like looking for an Uber? Can we help you? Whatever. And my first instinct, as someone being totally by myself and a first timer to Mexico, I'm like, oh God, this is where I get trafficked. Nonetheless, did not get trafficked. They were just kids looking for tips. They were all cool, and same kids were there both times I was using an Uber service from the airport, and it was all cool. The next major tip is don't bring pesos to Mexico. For me personally, in Canada, I think I only switched over about $400 or $500, and I lost about $50 or $60 on that conversion, which was all fine and dandy. Didn't really matter. However, once I got to Mexico and ran out of my pesos that I had brought with me, I soon discovered that the way to go about this is to just simply go to a bank and use their ATM. It seemed to be like any sum of money that you wanted to withdraw, pretty much just came through at the exact exchange rate, and there would be like a really minimal fee of like $2 or $3 Canadian, even less if you're dealing in US dollars, which was super sweet and like pretty affordable. So if you are going to come down to Mexico, just go use a bank and use their ATM, and it's going to be a lot more cost effective than converting it back at home in your home country. Tips for mobility. Buses, they are pretty cheap. I didn't use them a lot because shockingly there's actually an even cheaper and more flexible way to get around. However, if you're pinching pennies, buses are pretty cheap. I did not do any buses within the city of Puerto Vallarta. I only used them to go to other places like Sayulita, and Sayulita being about an hour drive to 2 hours depending on the traffic away from Puerto Vallarta, was like 45 pesos each way, which is super super cheap. Not too shabby at all. I want to say it's about 16 pesos to $1 Canadian, 20 pesos to $1 US, just to give you an idea. So 45 pesos ain't too shabby for an hour and a half to 2 hour bus ride. Within the city, probably even cheaper. It definitely does not pay to drive in Mexico, not in Puerto Vallarta at least. I used Uber all over the place, very rarely used taxis, and what I found with that was that they are extensively and shockingly cheaper than they are in Canada or the US. Often trips from one end of the city of Puerto Vallarta to the other were landing anywhere between $8 Canadian to $15 for like pretty far rides. And if you are with other people and you're using the ride split feature, it's pretty like, honestly, it's pretty cheap what you can do as far as getting around with total flexibility. And using that split feature, and even with adding tips, like it's ridiculous. It doesn't pay to drive, especially if you own a vehicle down there, with how bumpy some of the roads can be and dirty and dusty. I would imagine people in this area that are driving Uber personally are probably replacing shocks and tires, maybe brakes, maybe a year and a half every year. Whereas in Canada or the US, when we have better maintained roads, depending on where you are, I personally had my Honda for over 3 years, and I haven't had to replace brakes, tires, or suspension, anything like that. So that is what I mean by it doesn't pay to drive in Mexico. You're better off using a rideshare service like Uber. Another big one for me personally, I obviously was going to Mexico for a long time. I planned to be there for much longer than 3 months, so I scrapped the resorts, and I recommend you do too, unless that's something you want to do. If you want to go for a shorter duration, drink your face off, and have good food, probably a good idea to go to resorts. But if you want to like actually live down there and see more stuff and interact with more people and just do cooler things outside of the realm of drinking your face off, get an Airbnb, or maybe even better, get a hostel, whatever you're comfortable with. But what I was going to mention is, with the skyrocketing prices of rent and housing in Canada, what I was able to get down there on Airbnb was pretty incredible. For let's say a basement apartment in the Niagara region in Ontario, you're looking at like $1,800 to $2,000 or more for a 1 or 2 bedroom miserable lifestyle. Down there, with the absurd fees on Airbnb for cleaning and service and all that stuff, even with those fees, you're looking at under $2,000 to under $1,800 on Airbnb for a month. And we're talking typically 2 to 3 bedrooms on the side of a mountain where you can see the ocean, and you have a pool, air conditioning, TV, Wi-Fi. Like, what else could you want? If you took these properties down in Mexico and lifted them up, put them in Canada, for what I was getting down there for about $1,800 to $2,000 a month, was pretty incredible. Here, if you were to move it to Canada, again, I got sidetracked, you're probably looking at $2,500 to $2,750, depending on where you are in between Toronto and Niagara Falls. It's crazy. And the best part about that is that things can actually be negotiable. And that's where knowing some Espanol comes into a lot of handy sense to have, and just building your network down there. I do have it written down here, just for reference sake. The last place I stayed was called Torrecoba, and this place had gated security and a pool. I think it was 8 or 9 stories tall. We stayed on the second last floor to the top, and you could see the airport and the ocean, the mountains, the whole skyline. It was beautiful. Panoramic views. Just what else could you want, right? For 3 bedrooms. That place was over budget, but it was 3 of us splitting it. About $4,010 with all the ridiculous Airbnb fees. So we learned that the owner of the Airbnb was looking to sell, and this place couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Like, it was pretty new. And we're looking at Canadian, probably about I want to say 180 to 200. Negotiable again. But why I keep on bringing up this negotiable thing is everything seems to be really negotiable down there for prices, especially for living. And this is what I mean by the example. $4,010 on Airbnb for a month at this place. The Airbnb owner gets back to me in about a week, since we hadn't destroyed his condo already, and says, how are you liking it? I'm looking to sell this in a couple months. We do need reliable renters down there. You know, don't forget how valuable it is to have good people in your unit, like myself, that will not destroy your unit and take care of it and all that stuff. He said, if we want to make a deal, I'll give you the unit for the next 3 months for $3,000 a month. To which at the time I was thinking I was going to have to come home, so I said thank you so much for the offer, and I'll consider it if I'm staying, but I'm probably not. Then another week and a half goes by, and the owner of the condo I was staying at comes back with another offer and says, for the 3 bedrooms for a month for the next couple months, I can give it to you for $1,850. So just goes to show how negotiable things can be. A lot of these property owners down there respect and value having someone more permanent in their unit that will bring steady money rather than making a little bit more and taking a gamble on who you're going to put in your unit. But with 3 bedrooms split between 3 people, $1,850 for panoramic views is very, very reasonable in today's renting market. And yeah, honestly, with the way things are going in Canada, I don't ever see really buying property in Canada. I would like to visit more places and get a feel for things, but Mexico is definitely in that region, up on my list of places to get property. And just, and just play that Airbnb game. Live down there part of the year, get a network of cleaners and maintenance people, and just keep the thing pumping out income. Also, on a side note, if you are comfortable with living without air conditioning, which many places in Mexico do not have, it's not as necessary down there, especially if you're working down there and spending most of your day outside of the unit. There are places that are super cheap. Like, I had a place when I first got there by myself with 2 bedrooms, 3 beds, a kitchen, and a living room for like $18 Canadian a night. As you know, that would be even cheaper in American. The caveat is it got pretty hot and I would have to take cold showers just to survive, but I would spend most of the day out of the unit anyways. But at nighttime it still took a while to cool down. But yeah, there was no actual glass windows you could shut. You had like glass blinders that you could close for the rain. But yeah, you could hear all your neighbors barking, kids. But yeah, as long as you had like a good fan system, it's okay. So like, really though, if you want to go on an extremely cheap trip and live with the locals and actually be in the heart of the city, or kind of towards the outskirts, whatever, like for $18 or $20 a night split between 3 people with a kitchen and a living room with Wi-Fi, TV, pretty not bad in my opinion. You can get a really, really fantastic and cheap trip into Mexico if you find the right place on Airbnb for cheap enough. For those that are not going to dine out as much too, for groceries, I found things to be extremely reasonable with the exception of a few items. Cheese and dairy being one of them. Like, not so much milk and cream, but like cheese is definitely on par with North American prices. Steak, higher quality seafood, definitely on par with at-home prices. But pretty much anything else, especially if it was on the shelf, like like, I'm not going to say non-perishable food, but stuff that lasts longer, ridiculously cheap. And especially if you want like fresh like fruits and veggie produce and stuff. Like if you're a vegetarian and you have like, say, set things that you're going to eat and you don't eat like lavishly like a king, you can absolutely get by at the grocery store in Mexico for pretty unbelievable prices. And that was like another thing I found very attractive about the area, especially if you're gonna do groceries and stay there for a longer period of time and cook from home and that kind of stuff. Another topic on eating on the beach or the block directly adjacent to the beach, you're gonna find the highest prices. What's funny about that is if you move away from the beach to the second block, the third block, or even further, you start to find like really, really big price discounts. Pretty much it's just having that beach appeal and being right there on the water always jacks the prices up. So if you do want to eat cheaper, find places a couple blocks off the beach, or even better, you can go to small street vendors, street meat, get some pretty fantastic fajitas, burritos, tacos, anything you want, all within a reasonable price. Matter of fact, the sloppier they put it together, the better. It will taste amazing in my experience. Next tip, aprender español, or learn Spanish. It goes a long, long way. When I was there by myself, I was learning like wildfire. And then I did bring my grandpa down for a while during this trip and my other buddy Alex. And yeah, I virtually just stopped learning Spanish besides translating things as I would go along the way. But being able to get down there and again negotiate for prices and meet new people and network and learn some good Spanish is going to go a really, really long way. You can communicate effectively and kind of get whatever you want for better deals along the way. If you want to speed this process up, challenge yourself to become a social butterfly. Go out there and talk to the hombres y mujeres. Go get out there, talk to people. A lot of people down there are bilingual. They know some English and they'll help you out. Some of the things that I did that really helped me learn some Spanish was I would use Duolingo and Memrise. I was planning on getting a tutor down there, but never ended up doing it. I wish I had done that because I think I would have retained a lot more and learned a lot more of the kind of nuances of the language. Another thing I like to do as well is I listen to like a lot of Latino music, and I would go on the Apple Music app and search up the lyrics, and then I'd go into Translate, which was like the Bible of learning another language for me. I would punch in whatever I read everywhere I go as far as signs, menus, whatever, and figure out what it meant in English. And so anyways, you can do that with a lot of music, and you will remember lyrics for stuff and kind of like the nuances of how it goes together. It's really helpful. And another thing you can do too is watch TV with subtitles. You can watch it either in Espanol with English subtitles or in English with Espanol subtitles. And as you kind of like build that mental portfolio of a different language in your head, you start to connect different words and different sentences, and things start to make more sense. So definitely something I would recommend. I knew a little bit of Spanish before I went to Mexico, but really like the amount that I learned by being down there by myself and like being immersed in that environment for a long period of time was like super awesome. And I definitely like intend to follow up with that and continue to learn because I do plan on spending more time down in Latin countries and making some investments and stuff. I like it. It's really awesome. Another tip that I recommend, but I couldn't afford it, but I did it anyways. But like definitely plan to have like a good cell phone plan. Canadian cell companies are known for over leveraging and pillaging their clients. But they do offer really good service for a premium. For me, I had my original bill for 100 something, and then pretty much I paid an extra $210 a day to use the phone exactly as I do in Canada down in Mexico, and I never had any problems with service. It was super helpful for translating on the go, even more important for navigating on the go, using Uber, getting around. You're never really stuck in a super shitty spot if you have your cell phone the same way you would be without the cell phone. And even to taking it to like an extreme for like safety reasons, at the time when I went down to Mexico, it was just supposed to be me by myself for the whole time. So I had my parents suggest that we put a tracker on the phone, which in any other circumstance would be like, hell no. But I was like, okay, well, I am going to Mexico by myself, and it's probably a good idea for somebody to have an eye on where I am just in case I go missing. So having that cell service was a good safety net as well, to have a tracking app on the phone. And we had that hooked up the entire time I was in Mexico. And luckily nothing ever happened. But if I did go missing, that would have at least hopefully helped my odds of survival. So yeah, just for safety, for navigation, for translations, for general ease and fluidity of your trip, and for emergency purposes, good idea to get a solid cell phone plan when you go down to Mexico. Another thing I'll caveat that with too is that they do have a lot of American companies, like say AT&T down there for cell phone companies in the Puerto Vallarta region of Mexico. My grandfather ended up getting a full service awesome plan and a brand new Samsung cell phone for like $550 Canadian. That was going to last him for like, I want to say either 6 months or 12 months. But either way, still solid and cheaper than at home. And yeah, if you're spending a lot of time down in Mexico, or you're gonna move there and try and like immigrate or get some sort of permit to stay, maybe just think about getting rid of your Canadian or American cell phone. Just get one in Mexico. It's gonna be way cheaper and just way more effective. And I've seen it work. It works pretty effectively. Last tip. My mother would never let me travel anywhere, and I always forget to do it every time I book a flight to go to a different country. But it's probably because people from teenage years up until about 30 seem to think they're invincible, as have I. So yeah, get your travel insurance. You never know when you're going to be in an emergency. I feel like the Mexican hospitals are pretty reliable and they don't gouge the same way as they do in the States, but you never know when there's going to be an emergency. Just get travel insurance. It's probably a good idea. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up my tips and tricks for traveling to the Puerto Vallarta region. Yeah, if you get the chance, get down there, enjoy it. I think it rained like 3 times in the 3 months I was there. It was beautiful. Get to the beaches, go out and enjoy the nightlife, enjoy the food, go visit some tour booths, or even better, I booked a bunch of different little day trips on Airbnb. You can get them on TripAdvisor as well, I believe. And yeah, just get down there, enjoy it. And for most people, young and old, I do recommend Puerto Vallarta. I think it's a relatively safe region to go to. I really enjoyed my time there, and I'd recommend it to anyone that asks for sure. All right, so that's my quick tips and tricks for Puerto Vallarta. That's another episode of ZFK Talks, and we will catch you in the next one. Safe travels. Peace out.